Hello folks, what we got here is a G90. This is a 2017. What we're going to be doing here is front brakes and pads and rotors. That's what I meant to say. Alright, so I'm going to show you what's involved. Okay, got a couple of screws here. Good time to do it is to take it off now while it's all assembled so you don't have to hold the rotor. Check this out. Looks like somebody has stripped this one and I couldn't get it off. So if you notice there's a little notch in there, what I did was I just took a little small thin chisel and just knocked it off on a little bit, chopped it off and just made it spin off by itself. I'm not putting this back because it's not going to be good, because it's not going to come back out. All right, looking at the caliper itself, okay, has a pin here, secured by little clips. Once you pull those clips out, these pins will slide. Then there's two bolts in the back that hold this whole caliper assembly on. There's no caliper bracket. The caliper itself bolts to the spindle or the knuckle. Okay, so I'm going to show you the way I did it. I'm sure there's another way you could do it. I don't know, you could take the caliper off with the pads already attached with the pins and then play with the hardware and the pins later. I decided to knock off the pins now out here because this is very heavy and the rotors are very heavy. So let's go check it out. All right, so we're on this side over here. Like I said, I'm gonna take these little 3 screws off here. 1, 2, and 3. These came off a lot nicer. Then up over here, there's 2 clips. All right, pull them off with a pair of needle nose. You can't get it with your normal hands. You don't want to bend them because you're going to reuse them. All right, so just take them off nicely. It should pop right out. That's what they look like. All right, the straight part goes into the pin and the curved part kind of like leans up against it, so it won't come out. Okay. Now the other thing you're going to need a little thin punch. It's hard to find one. I just happen to have one. Really thin, just enough to fit in there. What you want to do is you want to punch it in and punch these pins out through the other side. All right, you could punch it out as far as that, like that one over here, and then you can pull it out with a pair of pliers or punch it all the way through. All right, the brake pad's going to give you a little tension because the clips here have a little spring to it. All right, so let's do that. Knock them out. All right, so here's the pins that we're going to knock out. Take the little punch in there. I'm going to push them all the way through. Grab them with a pair of pliers. Just slide them right out. Of course, we're going to wire brush all these nice and clean. Now, if I would do this now, no sense waiting until later. They're going to be rusty, especially if you're in the Northeast. It's really not that bad. I think this got about 37,000 miles on it. Doing the brakes on this because the brake rotors are warped. When the car gets a little hot, driving on the highway, apply the brakes. You can actually feel it in the brake pedal. It has a little pulsation on it. So, because of age, that's why we're changing the rotors. Okay, because apparently they're all warped, even though it's low mileage. All right, that's done. And in the back here, there is, let's see what size that is. You know what? On top here, see the brake hose? Okay, there's a brake hose up there. It's a 10mm bolt. I'm going to take it out because there's a bracket that holds the brake hose. And it only makes the brake hose this small. So you have to move around this caliper. It's going to end up ripping out or you're going to damage the brake hose. So You take it out. I usually put the bolt back in so you don't lose the bolt. But just to leave the hose loose, so you have plenty of room to move it up and over, move it around, whichever way you can grab it. Down on the bottom, there is two 17mm bolts that hold the caliper to the knuckle. I'm going to be breaking those off. All right, let's do that. All right, before I take the last bolt off that caliper, I want to show you a little trick. The problem was, on the other side, there's two pistons on this side, pushing the brake pads. The problem is that the tools that you normally buy to push a brake pad in would grab this side and then push one piston in. The problem is that this is so thick that you can't use that tool. You can't use it on the other side too. And if you do it, you're going to do it on one side. The other trick was I had used a C-clamp. I used a C-clamp on one side, and what I used was the brake pad, the old brake pad, I stood it straight up this way. So it grabbed two pistons at the same time, and I was able to kind of squeeze it in a little bit. Then I had to flip it and do the other side. But there's another trick. This trick involves a screwdriver, two screwdrivers. What you do is you take a screwdriver. Now remember, I'm changing the rotor, so I'm not worried about the rotor. You guys are saving the rotor. I don't think I can recommend this, but I don't think a screwdriver is going to ruin a rotor. What I did was I shoved it between the brake rotor and the brake pads. Okay, one on each side over here, and I just pushed it in like this. I pulled on it or pushed on it, depending on which way you're going, and you're actually pushing the piston back in. Jump back on this side, same thing, and I push that piston back in. So right now it's got so much freedom and play in there because both pads are now pushed back in. The pistons are pushed back in. We're good to go. Let's save you another trip of doing that later on. So let's continue with the bolt here to take off. Like I said, this is going to be very heavy. So we're just going to place it around top of this rotor right here once it comes out. Just be careful with the brake hose. Don't twist it in any way. It's a long bolt, people. All right, here she comes. Nice long bolt. This is the caliper. I'm gonna put it up on top here. Put it on top here. I'm gonna show you what it looks like. Right, that's what it looks like right there. That's the hardware, the clips, which is a spring. It retains the brake pads on both sides. So what we're going to do here is basically you can slide the brake pads towards the center. Because now that the pins are gone, these should slide out and come out in your hands. Should. Probably need two fingers to do this. Okay, here's one. Put on top here for now. The other one is probably hitting the rotor. There it is. All right. I'm going to take this out. If you peek in there, those are the two clips. Right? Those two clips, they come with the brake pads. When I buy the AutoZone brand, this is what I'm using. Duralast brake rotors. 70135DL. And the gold brake pads are DG1975. All right. You can buy the factory ones if you want. I think it's about $120 more. Okay. Otherwise, you could buy these, which is a lot cheaper. And of course, there's other places that you can get even cheaper stuff, but I wouldn't go that cheap. All right. Buy good stuff. They'll last longer. The rotors are guaranteed for 2 years. All right. So like I said, now that I saved the part about pushing these things in, we are good to go. We're going to flip it over. I'm going to take those little clips off and change the clips. So let's do that. All right, so these clips, they basically just slide out. Take a little screwdriver in here, pry them up. They just slide up and out. This is what they look like. This is what the new ones look like. All right. Another one out. Another one goes in. You can grab them from the back if you want. From underneath. You just want to make sure that they're flush against the sides, so you won't have a problem with the brake pads going back in. All right. Remember, don't forget the pins go in here. So, what we can do now, if you want, we'll flip it back over. Do it like that for you so you can see. All right. And then go get the brake pads. The brake pads. There are left and rights to the brake pads. Okay. Just want to let you know that. At least that's what I see when I took the other side off. I'm going to show you the old one. See, this is the old one from the driver's side. Let me show you the one from the passenger side. So you see the difference? It's got like a little cutout over here on the corners of the pads. And they're different from one side to the other. All right? That's the only difference that I see there. But to keep it close as original, I looked at them and put them just the same way. The same cutout is the same cutout. So the new pads has the same cutouts. You see it? So I'm going by whatever was on there. Hopefully it was installed right from somebody. So these are going to sit in there, held in with the spring clamps. The other one's going to go in the other way. Held on with the spring clamps also. Sometimes you have to peel them back a little bit. There you go. Now I'm going to flip them over. I'm going to put the pins back in. And that way the caliper part is all set up. So let's do that. Let's get those pins. What I do with them. There you are. So I'm going to flip this caliper back over. Gotta watch out. The brake shoes will slide off and move on you. All right, so I'm going to stick it through the top here. Remember, the brake pads are under tension with a spring, so you might have to push them down a little bit. So I'm just going to put the pins halfway in. Just to hold the brake pad in place. All right, so they're just about touching the other pads. And I want to work on the rotors. I'm going to flip it over back out. Let's flip it back this way. Slide them back in. So the clips hold them. There you go. Now I'm going to get a hanger. We're going to hang this whole setup up out of the way without no harm to the brake hose. All right, sound good? Spin it sideways. There you go. So now we're going to do the rotor. The rotor, we're just going to whack it. Since we don't need it, you can whack it right on the surface if you want. Otherwise, go whack it right here. And it should pop right out. Mamma mia. There you go. All right, once it's out, just double check the surface here. You got a wire brush, you can wire brush it, but like I said, got low mileage. It's in pretty good shape. All right, let's go get the rotor and clean it up. You know what to do with that, right? All new rotors come with a little bit of oil on it. So you gotta get a little brake cleaner, get a nice clean rag, wipe it clean, and then we'll throw it on and we'll put the 3 bolts back on. All right, that's what we're gonna do. All right, cleaned off the rotor, threw it on there, tighten up these screws with this impact Phillips. That's it. So now we're off to the caliper to put it back on. All right. Make sure you don't have the hose twisted. Put it straight down and put your 2 bolts on there. And want to tighten up the bolts. All right. So, like I said, just be careful when you flip it around. You don't want that hose twisted. Okay, when it's mounted, because you moved it so many times, sometimes you forget how it goes. It should fit perfectly in there with a nice little curve, and the bracket is going to bolt right up there with no problems. Okay, and I'll put you down here, and we'll do that. All right, the hardest part is going to be lifting it up and putting it back on. I'm going to end up blocking you with my sleeve, but I don't have a photographer here to help me. All right, so slide it on. See how easy it goes in once the pistons are pushed in. Like I said, it's a lot easier to do it that way before you take the caliper off than to figure out how to do it when it's out. Because the regular conventional way of pushing in the piston does not work for this. It's hard to see here. Let's take a look. All right, so I'm going to tighten that down. Go inside. Let's look up the specs to that. All right, I want to tighten up those 2 bolts. All right, once the caliper's on and talk to specs, we're going to go and install that brake hose bracket, which is a 10 millimeter. Okay, so let's see. Take the bolt off of here. Bracket only goes one way. There's a little alignment tab that goes in there. Can't mess that up. Tighten this up. Remember, it's a thin bolt, so depending on what ratchet you use, this is a 1/2 inch drive. You can snap that bolt instantly. Okay. So, don't want to do that. All right, so that's it. That's it. The hose is nice and smooth. The way it runs, it's not twisted. Now we're going to work on the pin. Now this pin here, it's under spring tension here. Okay, because the spring is pushing them up. That's why you've noticed this is a little higher than the one in the back. The back is already through with the pin already. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look through this hole here. Okay, on this side, what I usually do is I try to push the pad down a little bit while I'm pushing this pin at the same time. So I got it through the pad. Now I'm just going to try to get it through the other side. So let's see if I can just get a little tension here to push it down. Then I need something to tap that with. I could probably use this instead of my hammer. Now let's use a hammer. The only hammer I got is the sledge right now. Let's see. Just line it up. There it's going in. Go back to my little punch there. Step that in. Okay, the only thing here now is you have to line up that little hole. Remember that little hole for the clip? So let's find that hole. Use a pair of needle nose here. There you go. I can see the hole there. I'll show you to it in a little bit before I put that clip on. But let's continue with the bottom one. Okay, same thing here. Okay, so here goes around this clip. Let's pull it back out if I have to. All right, goes around that little clip. Push it forward. Let's go look for the little hole there, people. Push the brake pad. Let's get a little tap. You know, that went pretty good. I'm using a little punch here to just come down on it a little bit. Get a little tap. There you go. All right, I'm gonna line this up, punch this in. The hole is already lined up. So yeah, we can do that too, people. You can line up the hole first before you push the pin in. It'll make life a little easier. Right now I'm looking for the pins. All right, I'll show you the pins. All right, there's a hole in the back there and a hole in the front there. So these are just going to go in like this. I'm going to push it in. I'm going to use my little pliers. Just pop them in. Perfecto. This one here is the same thing. You can see the hole there. Slide this in there. Pop this in there. And that is it. Okay, matter of fact, I've seen them turn in like this. So I don't know if that locks them in place or whatever, but it is what it is. That's it, people. Your brake rotors and your brake pads are now in. We're just going to put the wheels back on, take it for our test, and break in the brake pads to the rotors. Okay? That's it. We're done. G90 brake pads and rotors. Always change them together, people. Don't just do half. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. All right. Thanks for watching, people. Genesis out.